This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here with your latest Meteo Mundo video on Tropical Storm Tammy. This video will cover the Thursday 5 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. If you have a specific question on Tropical Storm Tammy, please feel free to drop it in the comments section below. We'll be happy to answer those questions. I hope the video itself will answer a majority of those questions as well. Thank you very much for liking the video, and if you want the latest forecast on Tammy from Meteo Mundo, make sure you hit that subscribe button. On the top of your screen, you're going to see the statistics from Tammy from the 5 p.m. advisory. Very little change right now in intensity. That's good news. Tammy has not strengthened throughout the day. Winds are still 60 miles an hour. Tammy is moving slightly north of west at 13. That general track should continue through tomorrow morning, with then Tammy taking more of a northwest turn throughout the day on Friday as it rounds the western periphery of the Atlantic Ridge of high pressure to the north, and then that general northwest track should continue into the weekend. Tammy's pressure is slightly down to 1,001 millibars. Now, also pretty much unchanged is the Hurricane Center's overall thoughts on Tammy as we move forward from the 11-day advisory. There's been very little change in track and intensity. Tammy is still forecast to move through the northern windward islands throughout the day on Friday, and then to the leeward islands Friday night and into Saturday. Still forecast to slowly strengthen, and by Saturday, Tammy is expected to become a Category 1 hurricane in the northern leeward islands. Now, one thing that has changed and will consistently continue to change are the watches and warnings that are in place. I'm going to read them as of the 5 p.m. advisory, but please note these are consistently changing as Tammy gets closer to the islands, and you should check in with your local governments for the watches and warnings that could currently be in effect for your area. But as of the 5 p.m. advisory, a hurricane watch is now in effect for Guadeloupe, Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis. A tropical storm warning is in effect for those areas as well, and Dominica. So the same areas under the watch and Dominica under a tropical storm warning. For a tropical storm watch, we have Barbados, Martinique, Anguilla, St. Bartholomew, Saba, and St. Eustatius, and the St. Martins, both of them. Again, that's consistently changing. I'll read them one more time at the end of the video. But again, I expect those to just continue to change as Tammy moves closer. I'll kind of broad brush what those mean as we move forward. But looking at Tammy right now, I don't see it looking any more impressive than what it did at the 11 a.m. advisory. It's still fighting some wind shear out towards the west, a little bit of drier air as well. Certainly a blow-up of thunderstorms on the eastern and the southeast side. Those are the big white cloud tops that you see. And then our concentric rings that you see there, that's our model putting on tropical depression and tropical storm force winds. The blue are your tropical depression winds up to 39 miles an hour. The purple, your tropical storm force winds up to 73. Obviously, they're not that high at this point in time, but I do want you to notice that the tropical storm force winds are displaced north and east of the center of circulation. Now, we still have dense overcast over the actual center itself, but again, it's relatively ragged on the western side. That being said, it's still moving through extremely warm sea surface temperatures, and a slow and gradual strengthening trend is forecast from the National Hurricane Center. So as we get into Friday, again, for Barbados, that tropical storm watch, same thing for Martinique. St. Lucia, no, you're not under a tropical storm watch. In general, for the northern windward islands, you should expect tropical storm conditions. Hopefully, the core of those winds will stay just to the east of you. Again, we could have winds on the Hurricane Center's track of 60, maybe to 65. As we go Friday night and into Saturday into the southern leeward islands, for these areas, you should expect tropical storm conditions. Those will be likely, and then the potential for some hurricane conditions just based solely on how quickly that Tammy strengthens. That's why those areas that I mentioned are under tropical storm watches. But also note that the Hurricane Center has a closer approach as we get into the southern leeward islands from Dominica, towards Guadeloupe, St. Kitts and Nevis, and then on over towards Montserrat as well. So by the time we get towards Guadeloupe here, and this is going to be late Friday evening, overnight into Saturday, we now have those winds of up to 70 miles an hour. Okay, again, that stamp time is not correct as far as the forecast time. That was the initial time here, but you get the idea that this track on the Hurricane Center is going to take it right through the Leeward Islands. And now as we get past Montserrat and into Antigua and then on over towards Barbuda, there is your hurricane force potential right there, your 75-mile-an-hour winds that could be just to the east of Anguilla and St. Martin. So northern Leeward Islands, the potential for hurricane conditions. We'll see if down the road additional hurricane watches, potentially even warnings, are issued for the area. Not as of yet. When we go off towards the west at this point in time, we expect Tammy to stay just east of the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and the eastern sides of Puerto Rico. Doesn't mean you won't see some impacts, but you're not expected to see the significant impacts that the northern windward and the Leeward Islands are going to see. Now, again, that being said, I want to certainly mention as well that we have to keep an eye on the actual track of Tammy, because certainly the strongest winds, the heaviest rain will be to the center and east of that center of circulation. And we got to try and hope that we can get that center of circulation to turn and move just east of the islands. That's really the only potential saving grace between now and Saturday. This is the GFS model. The GFS model has been consistently the strongest model with Tammy. And as I've mentioned in the last videos, it continues to nudge farther off towards the west. Several days ago, Tammy on the GFS model was several hundred miles away from the islands. And now this model, even though it's slightly east of the islands still, continues to get closer and closer. So basically on the GFS model, it has a high-end tropical storm into a potential minimal hurricane moving just east of the islands. Again, for the same time frame here, you can see that on our model time as we get into the weekend and then into Saturday and then moving north. And really all the models actually have Tammy getting even stronger as it moves north of the Leeward Islands. We can take a look right now at the potential winds out of the GFS model as well. So I'm going to switch over to the wind gusts. Again, these aren't sustained winds, but it gives you an idea of where tropical storm conditions are possible. And again, it misses the northern windward islands, and then a little nudge west would skirt the eastern side of the Leeward Islands, especially places like Barbuda and Antigua, which are the easternmost islands there, and maybe the eastern sides of Guadeloupe. So again, this model keeps the core of the strongest winds slightly away from the islands, but you can see the intensity here. We're looking at high-end tropical storm. These are gusts and knots, maybe 50, 60, even close to 70 miles an hour, which again is in line with what the Hurricane Center is thinking. Rainfall totals are going to be significant as well. Again, the possibility of some flash flooding being caused out of Tammy, and we'll again go over those specifics as well in just a second. But let me switch over to the actual total precip on this model, and we'll take a look at that. And again, the GFS model has been one of the models which keeps the core of the heaviest rain just slightly off towards the east, but that core is significant, and you can see that spreading in. I'm going to actually let it run one more time, and then we'll take a look at some of the areas that I just mentioned. But again, you can see just east of Antigua and Barbuda. If I query these areas here, again, look how sharp that gradient is. The GFS model has a couple of inches of rain in Barbuda, and then you go 15, 20 miles away and it gets into 5, 6+ inches of rain. And it's the same thing for Antigua. Now, the official forecast for the Hurricane Center is much more rain than this. And the reason why is it's simply not buying the solution of the GFS model. It does think that it's going to go farther off towards the west and take it inherently through the islands a little bit more prominently. And I can show you that solution on the NAM model. This is the North American model. This one has been consistently more in line with a track that is more right over the heart of the northern windward islands and the Leeward Islands. Again, beginning on Friday and then throughout the day on Saturday. Now, it's slightly weaker than what the Hurricane Center has. And again, I've mentioned this in the videos as well. The Hurricane Center is basically taking the most direct impact track and then also the strongest from the models as well, turning Tammy into a hurricane by the end of Saturday in the northern Leeward Islands. The NAM model would also bring a little bit more rain and some gusty winds to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Again, at this point in time, we think it's going to stay just east of those areas. So let's break down the time of arrival of these tropical storm force winds. Again, as we go through the day on Friday, if you live in the northern windward islands, that's when we'll start to see some tropical storm conditions move in. As we get into Friday night, they'll begin to approach the southern Leeward Islands, and then throughout the day on Saturday, those tropical storm force winds and potentially even some hurricane force winds moving through the rest of the Leeward Islands. So the potential impacts from Tammy really haven't changed. And again, this is straight from the National Hurricane Center's advisory. This is not me coming up with what I believe the models are showing me. This messaging needs to stay consistent so our friends in the northern windward and leeward islands know exactly what we think is approaching them. So tropical storm winds of 55 to 73 miles an hour are possible by tomorrow, especially in the northern windward islands. And then hurricane force winds 74 miles an hour or greater are possible in portions of the leeward islands beginning late Friday night and into Saturday. So obviously that's significant wind impacts for portions of those islands. Rain impacts, 3 to 6 inches of rain with a maximum of 10 inches across portions of the northern windward and the leeward islands. That could certainly lead to isolated flash flooding and flash flooding of urban areas, and potentially could even lead to some mudslides in higher terrain. For the Virgin Islands and the eastern sides of Puerto Rico, it's 1 to 2 inches of rain, potentially up to 4. And again, it all depends on how close Tammy's core moves to the Virgin Islands. Other impacts expected: a storm surge of 1 to 3 feet. Dangerous surf and sea conditions, rip currents and swells. We could have some seas off the eastern side of the islands of over 10 feet. Again, it's going to really produce some long period swells and dangerous rip currents. And again, I will state this: for local impacts in your area, for the latest watches and warnings, and for any local messaging, please consult your local government for those detailed pieces of information. We will keep you updated right here at Meteo Mundo with the latest advisories as well. We're also doing our live stream. Look for that on the live tab. Again, that's all of the newest information on Tammy and throughout the Caribbean and the Bahamas, updating live for you on that live tab. Thank you so much for tuning in, friends. We wish the best for our friends in the Windward and the Leeward Islands. I'll keep you updated right here. And again, also thank you for liking and subscribing to